Today, we're diving into the profound insights of Adlerian psychology, as brought to life by philosophers Ichiro Kishimi and Fumite Koga. Drawing from the work of Alfred Adler, their ideas challenge us to rethink happiness, freedom, and the meaning we give to our lives. So, grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's explore a psychology of courage that just might change the way you see yourself and others. Here we go. Etiology and teleology. In Adlerian psychology, we are introduced to two key concepts: etiology and teleology. Etiology is the study of causation, why things happen, while teleology focuses on the purpose of a phenomenon, emphasizing not just its cause but its end goal. This distinction shapes the entire framework of Adler's psychology. Adlerian psychology isn't concerned with what you have, it's about what you do with it. It's not about what's happened in the past, it's about what you choose to do now. Your personality and disposition are encapsulated in what is called lifestyle, which refers to how you see the world and how you perceive yourself. This lifestyle isn't fixed, it can evolve and change. Life in general has no meaning. Whatever meaning life has must be assigned to it by the individual. We are not like stones rolling down a hill. We can stand up and choose our path. We must stand up to Kant's inclination. Everyone can change. People can change and find happiness from this moment onward. No matter what has occurred in your life up to this point, it should have no bearing at all on how you live from now on. If you stay stuck in etiology, you're trapped by the past, blaming it for everything, and happiness becomes elusive. Etiology limits our free will, treating us as mere machines responding to external events. The key isn't what you're born with, it's what you do with what you've got. Your life is decided here and now. Life's not a race or a line from A to B. It's a series of moments now. Adults who do not know this attempt to impose linear lives onto young people. Their thinking is that staying on the conventional tracks, good university, big company, stable household, is a happy life. But life is not made of lines or anything like that. The kind of life that tries to reach a destination may be termed a kinetic, dynamic life. By contrast, the kind of dancing life could be called an energial, actual active state life. If the goal of climbing a mountain were to get to the top, that would be a kinetic act. However, if the goal means the mountain climbing itself, one could say it is energial. In this case, in the end, it doesn't matter whether one makes it to the mountaintop or not. When one has adopted an energial viewpoint, life is always complete. However, don't confuse being earnest with being too serious. If one is living each moment earnestly, there is no need to get too serious. 3. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. There are two objectives for behavior: to be self-reliant and to live in harmony with society. The two objectives for the psychology that supports these behaviors are the consciousness that I have the ability and the consciousness that people are my comrades. Self-reliance. Why do we hold ourselves back? Why do you dislike yourself, zero in on your flaws, and refuse to start liking who you are? Adler would say it's fear of being disliked by others, fear of getting hurt in relationships. Feelings of inferiority are subjective assumptions. A healthy feeling of inferiority is not something that comes from comparing oneself to others. It comes from one's comparison with one's ideal self. But when you start using inferiority as an excuse, I can't do this because of that, you've slipped into an inferiority complex. Braggarts are drowning in inferiority too, just hiding it behind swagger. If one can build horizontal relationships that are equal but not the same for all people, there will no longer be any room for inferiority complexes to emerge. It's only when we take away the lenses of a competition and the winning and losing that we can begin to correct and change ourselves. The pursuit of superiority is not something that is carried out through competition with other people. You are probably rejecting normality because you equate being normal with being incapable. Being normal is not being incapable. One doesn't need to flaunt one's superiority. Separation of tasks. We must separate tasks. Doing so simplifies everything. You choose your own path, and how others perceive it is their task, not yours. In general, all interpersonal relationship troubles are caused by intruding on other people's tasks, or having one's own tasks intruded on. Separating tasks is not an act of self-centeredness. Rather, it is interfering in others' tasks that reflects an egocentric mindset. Parents who force their children to study, interfere in their life choices, or dictate their marriages are acting out of self-centered thinking. Children who have not been taught to confront challenges will try to avoid all challenges. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Praise and criticism may seem different, but both serve as tools of manipulation. The only difference is one of the carrot or the stick. In praise, there is an implicit judgment, the passing of judgment by a person of ability on a person of no ability. First, do the separation of tasks. Then, while accepting each other's differences, build equal horizontal relationships. Only then can encouragement truly take effect, fostering confidence and growth without judgment or control. Don't seek recognition. A sense of contribution that stems from the desire for recognition is not true freedom. If one genuinely feels a sense of contribution, external recognition becomes unnecessary. In other words, a person who is obsessed with the desire for recognition does not have any community feeling yet. Wanting to be praised or choosing to praise others reflects a view of relationships as vertical relationships. Similarly, reward and punishment education leads to mistaken lifestyles in which people think, if no one is going to praise me, I won't take appropriate action. If no one is going to punish me, I'll engage in inappropriate actions. One must not live for recognition or to fulfill others' expectations. If you are not living to satisfy other people's expectations, it follows that other people are not living to satisfy your expectations. You can only choose the best path for yourself. On the other hand, what kind of judgment do other people pass on that choice? That's the task of other people, and is not a matter you can do anything about. Not seeking recognition and separating tasks may seem contrary to common social beliefs, like Alexander the Great cutting the Gordian knot. What another person thinks of you, if he or she likes you or dislikes you, that's that person's task, not mine. Being attached to recognition means letting others control your relationships. Does one entrust the cards of life to another person, or hold onto them oneself? So hold the cards to your personal relationships. Real freedom. Real freedom is an attitude akin to pushing up one's tumbling self from below. It means not fearing being disliked. Whether you're liked or disliked, you keep moving forward, unshaken. Desire for recognition makes you unfree. Choosing freedom can be unsettling, and at times, one may feel lost. In those moments, we need a guiding star, which is contribution to others as a grand compass pointing to a life of freedom. As long as that guiding star remains in sight, whether you're disliked or not, you pay it no mind and live free. Contribution to others does not require self-sacrifice, but rather fostering a true sense of belonging and community. Confidence in others. If you fear trusting others, you will ultimately struggle to build deep relationships. The first step is to fully accept this irreplaceable me as it is, that is self-acceptance. Then comes confidence in others. You can accept yourself and you can have confidence in others, then other people are your comrades now. While there are indeed people who may act in hurtful ways, it's important to recognize that these experiences don't reflect the behavior of everyone. People who are able to develop confidence in themselves and trust in others are more likely to see the world more accurately. Feeling of community, sense of belonging. Adler states that to get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe all alone. But such a life is impossible. We exist as individuals only within social contexts. People are not rivals but comrades. Shift your focus from self-interest to social interest. True fulfillment comes from concern for others. Adler's concept of community extends far beyond immediate surroundings. It includes not just family, school, or workplace, but all of humanity, spanning past and future, even encompassing nature and inanimate objects. The goal of interpersonal relationships is a feeling of community. This sense of belonging is the foundation of happiness in relationships. A life spent worrying about how others perceive you is self-centered, driven by attachment to self rather than genuine concern for others. You want to be thought well of by others, and that is why you worry about the way they look at you. That is not a concern for others. It is nothing but attachment to self. Letting go of this attachment and embracing concern for others is essential. You are not the center of the world. You are part of a larger community. A sense of belonging, feeling that it's okay to be here, is a fundamental human need. Instead of asking, "What will this person give me?" ask, "What can I give to this person?" That is true commitment to the community. A sense of belonging is something that one acquires through one's own efforts. It's not something one is endowed with at birth. Don't limit yourself to the small community immediately around you. Larger communities always exist. Living in fear of relationships breaking down means living an unfree life, dictated by others. We're truly aware of our own worth only when we feel that our existence and behavior are beneficial to the community. 4. Life, lie, and courage. He contrasts Freud's psychology of possession with his own psychology of use, a psychology of courage. Instead of living for others' expectations, one must face life's tasks head-on. The interpersonal relationships that a single individual has no choice but to confront when attempting to live as a social being, these are the life tasks. They include tasks of work, tasks of friendship, and the task of love. And avoiding them through excuses is what Adler calls the life lie. Change begins with accepting myself now and stepping forward with courage, regardless of the outcome. This process, encouragement, is central to Adler's philosophy. Acknowledging one's faults isn't weakness. It's the right attitude. But change takes courage. Adlerian psychology isn't about fate. It's about the courage to change, to step away from the past, to stop chasing recognition. It's all about living free. Avoiding life's tasks by making excuses is what Adler calls the life lie. The biggest life lie is refusing to live in the present, instead fixating on the past or future and thinking that gives life meaning. It's not yesterday nor tomorrow that decides it. It's here and now. One must cast aside the life lie, embrace the present, and face it fearlessly. Workaholics, for example, avoid life's real tasks by using work as an excuse. That's a way of living of refusing to acknowledge one's life tasks. A lack of follow-through isn't about ability, it's about losing the courage to face what needs to be done. The term individual means indivisible, the smallest whole that cannot be broken down further. This idea, known as holism, means the body and mind, reason and emotion, the conscious and unconscious, all function as a unified whole. We are not at the mercy of emotions that exist apart from us. When one separates the I from emotion and thinks, "It was the emotion that made me do it," or "the emotion got the best of me, and I couldn't help it," such thinking quickly becomes a life lie. Power struggle. Admitting fault isn't defeat. Anger may seem like a means to an end, but the real insight is this: you can communicate without it. You can express yourself and be heard without raising your voice. Once you experience this, anger stops showing up uninvited. Unhappiness is something you choose for yourself. At some stage in your life, you choose being unhappy. It's not about being born into difficult circumstances or ending up in an unhappy situation. It's that you judged being unhappy to be good for you. Think about this. When you're shouting at a waiter because of poor service, is it really because you can't control your anger? Adler would say no. You fabricated that emotion to fulfill a goal, maybe to make the waiter submit to you or hear you out. But the reality is, you could have calmly explained the issue, and the waiter might have sincerely apologized, cleaned your jacket, and solved the problem without the drama. The key point is that our actions aren't dictated by uncontrollable emotions. They're choices tied to goals we create. There's a difference between personal anger and righteous indignation, the latter stemming from societal contradictions and injustices. Personal anger soon cools, but righteous indignation lasts much longer. Anger can also be a tool used in a power struggle. When someone is angry over a personal grudge, it's simply a means to make others submit. Once the relationship enters the revenge stage, it becomes nearly impossible to resolve. To avoid this, never allow yourself to be drawn into a power struggle when challenged. Anger is a tool, a means for achieving a goal. When you become convinced that you're right in an interpersonal relationship, you're already entering a power struggle. You're shifting the focus from the rightness of your assertions to the state of your relationship, assuming the other party is wrong. The situation becomes a contest, and you begin thinking, "I have to win." This is the essence of a power struggle. In reality, the rightness of your assertions has nothing to do with winning or losing. Admitting mistakes, conveying words of apology, and stepping down from power struggles, none of these things is defeat. Admitting fault is a good attitude. But remember, it's impossible not to get hurt in relationships. When you enter into interpersonal relationships, it's inevitable that to a greater or lesser extent you will get hurt, and you will hurt someone too. The moment you think, "I'm right" in a relationship, you've entered a power struggle. It's no longer about truth, it's about winning. But being right doesn't mean you have to win, and stepping back doesn't mean you're losing. If you think you're right, regardless of what other people's opinions might be, the matter should be closed then and there. That's it for today's dive into Adlerian psychology with Ichiro Kishimi and Fumite Koga. It's a call to courage, to live boldly, to see others as comrades, to shine a light on the here and now. Thanks for listening and watching. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need a little encouragement too. Until next time, keep dancing through those moments. See you soon.